Our story of modern pet food picks up in the 1850s, when a young electrician from Ohio named James Spratt traveled to London to sell lightning rods. When he arrived, the ship's crew threw the leftover hardtack onto the dock, where roaming dogs happily devoured it. Now, hardtack was cheap to make, and dogs were becoming pretty popular, so James saw an opportunity. In the 1860s, he officially went into business, and the first processed dog food, or fibrine meat cake made with real prairie beef, was born. No one ever figured out exactly what prairie beef was. Now, over the next 40 years, Spratts would gain some competition, but it wasn't until the 1900s that things really started to heat up. The idea of buying processed food for your pet just seemed ridiculous to many people, and it took marketers some time to convince folks to give it a try. In the early 1900s, some bigger companies started to get into the game. And in 1922, the first canned food for dogs was created, Kennel Ration.
Fortified with every vitamin and mineral, every nutrient a dog is known to need. Chlorophyllin, too.
It was horse meat. We were still using horses for everything, from pulling school buses to delivering the latest copy of Scientific American, so there were a lot of them around. Now, at this point, pet food is still a pretty small market, and it's not found in grocery stores. People thought that was unsanitary and just gross. No one wants their dog biscuits touching their chicken dinner candy bar. Ew. Most dogs and cats were still eating meat and bones from the butcher, table scraps, and foraging and hunting for their meals. In 1931, Nabisco bought what is now Milk-Bone and hired 3,000 salesmen to get them placed in grocery stores. Easier said than done, but they did make some progress and the pet food industry grew a little bit bigger. Up until the 1940s, canned food dominated the market. It looked a lot more like real food, so people were more comfortable feeding it, and pets liked it more. But with the war hitting the US, metal was now reserved for the war effort, so pet food companies had to adapt. They started pushing dry foods as an alternative, though these are not the dry foods that we know today. They were even less digestible, and pets just didn't want to eat them. So when the war ended and companies were allowed to use metal again, cans quickly reclaimed their throne. But manufacturers were thinking. It was cheaper and easier to manufacture dry food, and it took less meat. They could add in more cereal fillers. In 1957, the Nestle pet food division borrowed a device called an extruder from the cereal department. They had been using it to make Chex cereal, and after some tweaking, the very first extruded dry dog food was born. Because of the incredible heat, the finished product didn't taste like food, and a lot of the nutrients were destroyed. But after they sprayed on flavors and synthetic vitamins, pets would eat it. Now it became possible to turn large amounts of cheap industry waste into pet food and turn a nice profit. And they just needed demand for it. In the 1960s, a full-scale marketing campaign was launched, both to scare people away from feeding real food and to enlighten them how great this processed food really was.
For baby, naturally the best. And for that other member of the family, again, the best, America's most trusted dog food.
There was even a radio program about the dangers of human food. The campaign was a huge success, and more pets started eating from bags of pet food. In the late 1960s, the term complete and balanced was created and printed on foods. Up until then, they were never advertised to be the only thing your dog ate. But now this term made the diets complete, at least on paper. The nutritional definition of complete and balanced didn't exist until 20 years later, so it didn't really mean a lot. Now, as the years went on, more and more pet owners started buying processed pet foods, and the market grew wildly. Pet stores went from offering 3 brands of kibble to 50 brands of kibble. Demand for new, interesting flavors filled store shelves with lamb, turkey, duck, salmon, even alligator. Through all of this growth, one group was excluded from pet stores until the late 90s, raw feeders. There will always be people who believe that fresh, real food is important, and pet parents are no different. During the entire history of processed pet foods, many folks chose to feed their pets fresh, raw foods. Until 1998, raw feeders were prepping their food at home, sharing it with their friends, getting together in groups and prepping large batches together. It worked, but it wasn't convenient. And this is where our story begins. One of those raw feeders mixing up food at home was Steve Brown, the founder of Steve's Real Food. After many years of research, Steve started making the first commercially available fresh food for dogs and cats. This move would completely change the pet food landscape and finally bring our pets back to the foods they've been eating since life began those 4 billion years ago.